Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. Welcome back to the show. We're excited to have Jacob Graves joining us once again. And yes, you're blessed. Yes, you're focused, motivated, and that's what you're here to do with so many people. Would you mind introducing yourself to our listeners to start?
Yes. Hello, I'm Jacob Graves. I'm the founder of Visions of Self Mastery. And I really help people to slow down in life so that they can learn to really um really be able to just understand how beautiful time is and how important it is to be able to slow down excuse me slow down in the moments of stress and really be able to augment time.
Got it. And by the way, let's just point out your website to start.
Yes, ma'am. My website is blessedwithdysfunction.com.
Perfect. And by the way, just a little bit about you and what you do, what brought you here. Would you mind sharing with our listeners? I know you're also working on a book. But you've been motivated by an experience in your life. Would you mind just sharing that with us?
Yes, ma'am. So, um, really a big experience, something that really impacted me was a car wreck. I was driving one night and all of a sudden I had a seizure and hit a rock wall, and pretty much I woke up surrounded by cops, surrounded by police officers, and lights, and I was very dazed and very confused, and I didn't know what was going on. I didn't even know where I was at. So they were like pretty much pushing me around, throwing me on the kind of threw me on the ground, and they were just questioning me. They thought I was on drugs, and I'm gonna be honest with you, I wasn't. So it was just a messed up situation. Um I ended up trying to tell them like 20 minutes later, 20 minutes into it, of them like, questioning me and them doing tests. I was failing some of the tests, I was passing some of them, but I ended up telling them, it was like I kind of came into it a little bit, and I was like, I think I've just had a seizure. And he said, no, don't try to do that. That's pitiful. He was like, you're going to jail. And so he took me to jail.
Now, did you ever have seizures before that?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you were born with something, or was it something that you?
Yeah. So I guess I was probably technically born with epilepsy. It runs in my family. So, but the thing is, my dad didn't have a seizure until he was 18. I didn't have one until I was 17, and my sister
Wow.
had one when she was 18. So
Wow.
there's something with that age, I guess,
That
in our
triggers
family.
things. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, so I have struggled with epilepsy previous to that, and I try to tell them. They actually took me to the hospital to get my blood tested before they took me to jail, and I was like, check the records. Like you can, I've been here before for epilepsy, for having a seizure. So it's just, I don't know. It really woke me up because it hurt me really bad, and
Yeah.
it it confused me, but at the same time it was like I was confused, but what I grabbed onto during that time of my life saved my life. And it was actually like a lot of research. I was also going through addiction, excuse me.
And which I know, by the way, that's going to be our topic of the day today, addiction in general. So could I ask what type of addiction were you going through?
Yeah, so I think they call it like a poly addiction. Like I kind of jumped around, honestly. My biggest thing was probably excuse me, benzodiazepines. But I also would use like cocaine and pain pills and stuff. I was lost. I really would do anything that not anything. Don't get me wrong, but I had my limitations on that aspect. But anything that I felt comfortable with that would change my consciousness and get me out of my own inner world or get me out of my environment that was pretty traumatizing. I had a lot of stuff grow up. I had a lot of stuff happen growing up that made me not feel comfortable in my hometown. Just because I'm constantly reminded of just bad things that happen, driving around. So it's just kind of hard to be here sometimes. I honestly I isolated myself really bad because of that, and it probably didn't help the situation a lot. Um, it just I don't feel safe outside of my home, honestly, and along with the traumatizing things that happen. So it's just like going out, it doesn't even really make me happy. Um, yeah.
Can I ask you when did this addiction start?
Shoot, I was probably I know I started drinking when I was like probably 12 or 13, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah, so maybe even 11. It was pretty young.
Do you know,
Um,
do you know why? Is it something in your family? Is it something that was lacking? Is it friends, peer pressure? Could I ask you personally, what
yeah.
brought you into alcohol and drugs?
So I was surrounded by it, honestly. I just saw, I saw my family do it. I saw grown-ups do it. Um, and I guess it was just, tempting as I was kind of just experimenting, honestly. There was no real like no real pain and suffering at that moment of my life. So I wasn't trying to escape anything necessarily. It was more of just like, curious, what is
Yeah.
this like? So yeah. But it definitely led me to want to try other things. I then started smoking marijuana at a really young age. Probably, I think I started right after that, honestly. So probably around the same age, 13, 14 at the highest. But and then that's when I really started using Xanax after that. And it just kind of after I started using Xanax and Klonopin and Ativan, which the Klonopin and Ativan were actually prescribed to me through a doctor. So I had that, but then I was still using Xanax off the street. So,
I'm just curious,
but
what would the Xanax do for you? What did the Xanax do?
it completely made me forget about everything that had happened.
Numbed you.
Yeah, it completely numbed me. It took me out of, like I said earlier, my inner world. And it just gave me a little peace. It slowed me down a lot. So it made my brain not spin around as fast. And it made me a different person. Like I didn't even try. I became a different person. Like I, I don't know. I got so far away from my distant nature, from my actual nature. I was so distant. And it allowed me to have a little bit more fun, I guess, because I wasn't so caught up in things that were bothering me. And I guess it's kind of like an alcohol effect for some people. It kind of just dims like the takes your guard down a little bit. So I like I said, it allowed me to loosen up and have a little bit more fun, going out with people because I've never really been the best socially. Like I'm not too bad in certain situations, but there's other situations where I'm not the best socially. So that helped me like have friends, honestly.
Mhm.
So it helped. It it did a lot. I don't want to sound like I'm glorifying it or anything because it did a lot of really other nasty things to me. Like honestly, one of the things I try not to get too down about is I don't remember a lot of growing up, to be honest with you. Um, it's kind of just hazy because I was on those substances for so long and then it got to the point where I would go up and down, I was on Xanax and then the next day I would do cocaine and the next day I would take a pain pill. I mean, it was just all over the place. So I was just really throwing myself for a loop. Um, and on top of having the car accident, I had some brain trauma from that. So that really put me in like like a perpetual state of just I'm lost. Like I don't even. I feel like I was in psychosis for a little bit, and I honestly just feel like I probably left that state like maybe a year and a half ago. I've definitely gotten a lot better, a lot better. Excuse me. I feel way more conscious than I ever have, and I feel so much happier than I ever have. Excuse me. I'm so sorry.
It's okay. That's why I
Um,
got this in front of me.
but yeah, so it made me forget. Like I said, it made me forget, but I never people still tell me things to this day that I was involved in that I have no idea I was involved in. And it's like when I try to think about, growing up and being with people, being with my friends, I don't really have too many memories of it. And it makes me sad.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of good things that I did growing up too that I don't really remember. I've studied psychology since I was about 14 years old, and that led to neurology and pharmacology, that led to biology and chemistry, that led to physiology. I studied integrated medicine. I've studied Chinese medicine. I've studied Ayurveda, which is the science of life. Um, I mean, there's just countless things. I studied anatomy. I just different cultures. Uh, I'm I have a lot of Native American in me, so I'm very attracted to different ways of life. Um, so anything that really explains anything about life, I'm truly fascinated in, or how humans work or function. I'm truly fascinated in. I think that's somewhat of why I'm here, is to, I guess, understand some aspects of life. And I
Yeah.
feel like the part of life that I'm really supposed to understand is how how disease and disorder works. That's really honestly where it's like that's what my soul wants me to do, and it's not always an easy thing to do, because some of the stuff you read about, some of the stuff you learn about is, I mean, it's crippling. It's so hard to think that some people actually deal with this stuff,
Yeah.
and there's no way to help them right now. And it's like something I'm very attracted to and interested in is like memory disorders and neurodevelopmental disorders. So I really study like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease, and I've studied autism a lot because I am autistic. Um, so I just I really I guess for the longest time of my life, I was scared that I was really going to lose myself, to something like dementia.
Yeah.
Um, and that was like my worst fear. Cause I felt like it would happen at such an early age. And there was parts of me that felt like it was already happening to me, because in that really bad time of my life, when I was like 19 and 20, there was times when I could be having a conversation with somebody, completely forget what I was talking about. And it was like,
Wow.
I would have to force myself to think.
Like,
And I don't know if it's not always easy to do when you're really just confused like that.
mhm.
And so what would happen was the last thing somebody would say to me, my mind was like empty. So what they would say would stick in my head, I guess, because it was the freshest. And then my mind would make me think that that's what I was thinking. So I would say it. So it was really different. I've also used to have like visuals of a kind of like a line going across my mind. And there was like a point, and the point was the thought that I was trying to think about and to portray into words. So, and if I didn't process the thought before the line hit the dot, then the thought was completely gone. It was like there was
Wow.
you might as well give it up because there's no way you're going to figure it out. And So it was just stuff like that. It was scary stuff. And I didn't know how to communicate. I didn't know how to formulate my thoughts and put them into words. I really didn't understand language sometimes, like people would talk to me and it would sound like gibberish.
Mhm.
So it was just, it was just really a hard time. But I find so much beauty in that part of my life because, I do, like I said earlier,
Mhm.
I do want to understand disease and disorder. And I feel like I have been through a lot of disorder. Um, and I've witnessed it firsthand, and now I'm powering through it. And no matter what happens, I'm never going to give up. And I've always had that mentality. And I think that's what kept me alive, to be honest, is me just never giving up. Those times I would like be researching on my computer for 12 hours straight, even if like without really looking up. I would go get some food or go to the restroom really fast, but that was just about it. And I would be right back at it. So
Mm.
I was a very driven person. No matter what I had going on, I was always trying to do something. And I think that's, one second.
Sure.
I think that's why I try to help people slow down so much now, is because that's something I really had to do when I needed to let my brain heal, because my it was so hard for me. I I never, like, I don't even really watch TV. I'm the type of person, I like to read or I like to listen to music and think. I like to run. I'm always trying to do something progressive. I'm always trying to grow. I always used to tell my friends, if you're not growing or laughing, what's the point?
Yeah. Mm.
So um I really had to embrace like sleeping like a lot more, because I would also only usually sleep like 4 or 5 hours a night.
Wow.
And so I had to sleep a lot more. I had to not be active. I couldn't run anymore. I couldn't exercise anymore. I had to really start taking care of myself and my diet. I started eating a lot of fat and protein to help my brain heal. Um, so I really just had to embrace a new lifestyle. It was the best thing that ever happened to me, to be
A-
honest. And
And
it
you're now
was,
inspiring others. You talk to people who have addictions and tell us how you're recovering and what's happening now and what you've learned from the whole experience.
yeah. So I think one of the biggest things that addiction taught me was to be uncomfortable, or be comfortable with the uncomfortable. Because getting sober is quite uncomfortable. It's not always fun, especially for that first little bit. Um, and even times after that, it still gets rough. You can't always have a good day every day. So, but the point is, you just have to stay present. And I've learned that when you're addicted, typically your mind's not addicted, it's your body. Because most people get to that point where, it's likely that you enjoyed it at some point in your life, but it gets to the point where you don't even enjoy it anymore. And you're just, you're constantly battling that ruminating thought of, I need to take a substance, or I need to do this, I need to go out and go shop and spend all this money. But while you're doing it or after you do it, you get so shameful and you get so guilty feeling. And it's just like, that's just awful. But I've noticed that it's your body that's addicted. It's not your mind. Because you can make that conscious
Yep.
decision of, I'm gonna stop this. I'm gonna quit today. I'm not gonna do it. But then you find yourself in that situation hours later, and it's like, leading up to it, I mean, it's just like, I don't even know what to call it. Just absolute, almost like turmoil just because you know what you're about to do to yourself and you don't know how not to. So, and then especially after you do it, you just, it's not fun. But I've noticed that you really just have to, when you're in that state, you're living in the past. You're not living in the moment and thinking for the future. You're living truly for your past, and you're acting in the past. We're very habitual beings, so our body gets used to, if people smoke a cigarette every time they get in the car, if they try to go quit cigarettes when they go to work, they're going to be prompted with that thought of, hey, you're usually smoking a cigarette right now,
Yeah.
you should smoke a cigarette. And then every time you see somebody smoking, you're going to want to smoke a cigarette. So there's just, you have to really stay present all the time. It keeps you, it gives you a big sense of urgency, which is helpful for other things in your life. You can kind of latch on and use that to um to help you, like I said, in other things in your life. But I just think that's really interesting. I also learned that the the mind has a body, like it has an energetic body. And I feel like that is truly how you, I don't know, tame the body. You tame it with
Hmm.
the mind's body. So you, um I I believe you do this with meditation and with not reacting to stimulus. You really, it's like, for example, getting in a cold shower. And if you have the ability to get in an ice cold shower and not shiver, you have control of your mind's body for sure. But if um I don't know, just if I'm not sure, that was just something really interesting that I figured out through that. Was I was actually meditating one night, and this was really cool experience happened to me. I was actually laying in my bed, and I don't usually do this. I usually have a very different way of meditating, but I was laying in my bed one night and I was just doing some deep breathing and some thinking. And I all of a sudden it felt like I started to levitate. It felt like my body raised. It felt like my body raised above the bed. And all of a sudden, I was able to move my extremities. And I was able to move my extremities past the limitations of my physical. So it literally, I could see it in my mind, and I could feel that I was moving my feet through my bed. But at the same time, I knew that it was my energetic body inside me, and that it wasn't my physical body. And then as soon as I pretty much released and stopped doing my breathing, it was like I just sunk back down into my bed, and I no
Wow.
longer was able to move my energetic body. But so I really tapped into it that day and that night, excuse me. And then it was after that I just started really trying to control the way I reacted to things, the way I reacted to stimulus, the
Hmm.
way I reacted to stress, just different things like that. So I just, addiction taught me a lot. I could probably go on for forever about this type of stuff. And I actually love talking about this type of stuff. And I think it's so, everyone's different. There's no real way to just, I wish I had the golden ticket just to give to everybody, to help people that struggle with addiction. But the thing with addiction is it um it affects people differently. People have different chemistry, people have different biology. So something that helps me may not help you. But the thing is like, that's when you have to go in and analyze your lifestyle, analyze what you're doing, maybe
Hmm.
educate yourself a little bit, and really get to the root of, why are you even taking that substance? Why are you, like, what is it that drives you to make that decision? What drove you to make that decision in the first place? Was it you just messing around and it ended up getting a little serious and out of your control? Or were you doing it because you were in pain, or, was it peer pressure? I
No.
mean, you have to figure it out. But that's really when you just grab control of your lifestyle, take stock of it, of what you're doing, and change what you're doing. And the bad thing about, I don't want to say the bad thing, but when you're freshly sober, it's pretty much like you are an infant. Like Jordan Peterson calls it not this exact example of addiction, but I've heard him talk about people being adult infants before. And ever since then, I've kind of always thought about, that's kind of what I was like when I was freshly sober, because everything to be true, and everything about how to handle stress and how to self-regulate, you can't do anymore. So it's
No.
pretty much like you have to teach yourself all new ways to regulate stress. You have to teach yourself all new ways to stay away from the triggers that bother you. And sometimes, I mean, I feel very lucky that I never had a big problem with alcohol, because it's everywhere. It's like in gas stations, and it's in food and supermarkets, and it's displayed on the streets, and it's just, I mean, it's everywhere. So I'm very blessed to say that I never had a big problem with alcohol. But um so I just think that
Mm.
it's a very delicate process, but it's a very rewarding process. And I highly encourage anyone that knows inside them that they need help, or that they just don't know what they're doing anymore, to reach out to somebody. I've actually went to rehab myself. I went for a month, and then I went and lived in a halfway house for almost 4 months. Um, I completely moved away from my home, from my state. I left the state, and went and lived somewhere else for a while. And it was the best thing that ever happened to me. I never experienced real happiness like that before.
No.
So I also would love to talk to anybody that feels like they need somebody to talk to, even if you don't want to, work with me as a coach and be a like actually be intertwined in that way, even if you just need a friend, because I do realize that, I was very alone in my addiction and getting sober. So, and it wasn't always easy, but I do wish I had more people around, but I don't know if I just believe that you have to have the right people around.
Yeah.
Because if people don't support you, then you're kind of better off being alone. But I'm not going to be that way. That's not going to be the case with me. I'll always support you. I'll always help you any way I can. And I'll always, even if I don't know what to do, I'll always try to guide you in the right direction.
Great.
So,
Well, thank you for being here, for joining us. Unfortunately, we're out of time. Tell us how we can reach out to you.
so my Instagram is self mastery 3. My my phone number, I believe, is at the top of my website. If anybody wants to reach out to me through that. I I can Zoom. I Let's see. My email, I actually created a business email. It is thesom35@gmail.com. So you can email me. There's but honestly, any way you guys like, if you guys want to follow me on Instagram, or if you do want to contact me through phone or email, I highly encourage you to reach out to me, because I would love to communicate, and just to see what's going on.
Well, thank you for being here, for joining us. And if anyone has any questions, reach out to him. And thank you for sharing your own experience with addiction. I know it's not easy to do, but hopefully you're helping someone out there and clearly continuing to help people with what you do. So
course.
thank you again. You have a great day and looking forward to the next time we speak.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.